Today our goal is I will graph lines that are in the form y equals mx plus b. And remember that y equals mx plus b, we have our slope and we have our y-intercept. Now before we actually get into graphing lines using that form, let's just review how to plot points. Okay, as you already know, a t-chart is a collection of coordinates for a graph. So here is a t-chart that's already been done for us, and what we're going to do now is we're going to graph them. So first of all, we can see we have -8, -6. Okay, so remember these are all ordered pairs. So -8, so we have 4, we have 6, we have -8, -6. So we're going to be going down to here and here. Okay, so there's our first point. Our next point is -4, -4. And if this is a straight line, all I really need is 2 points. But let's just make sure that the person that made this t-chart did it correctly. So at 0, it is at -2. And at 4, it is 0. And at 8, it is 2. Okay? And does it appear as if it's a straight line? Well, I'm not sure unless I've made a mistake here. Now, if you notice, as I said, it doesn't really look like a straight line. It looks like someone has made an error. Because if I take and draw a straight line, it looks like those 4 points make a straight line. But then I have this one here, our first one, which was -8, -6. So that's why it's important to do more than 2 points. Because if I use the first point and the second point to get my straight line, obviously I'd be wrong because there appears to be an error here. Okay, so when that would happen, you would go back to your equation that made the t-table and recheck to make sure that is correct. Now, obviously, we can't do that because I haven't given you the equation, but that is something you need to be aware of, that although you only need 2 points to draw a line, a straight line, it's better to do more than 2 just to make sure that you haven't made an error, like this point down here. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that point completely. Okay, so now let's go and look at graphing equations of lines. Now, first of all, one thing that you should know, there are 3 different forms of equations of lines. The first one is what we call the slope-intercept form, the y equals mx plus b. The second, we call it the point slope form. And so we'll be using that one more later on in this unit. So right now we have already looked a little bit at this one. And then what we need to do is we have another kind, it's called the general or standard form. And it looks like this. Now, for you this year, other than turning these other forms into this isn't useful to us. Okay, so for the most part, it's not useful at all. Okay, so that's important to realize. So now let's look at the y equals mx plus b, because that's what we're going to graph with today. Okay, so first of all, we have our y, and the y is the y coordinate. It is what we call the dependent variable. It's actually dependent on what you choose for your x. Okay, so the x coordinate, okay, and it's an independent variable. So you choose your x's and you substitute the x into the equation and out comes your y. So that's why the y is dependent. Then we have our m. And remember, m stands for slope or unit rate, or it also stands for these forms as well, delta y over delta x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so slope is all of those things. And then we have this letter b. Now, b stands for the y-intercept. Okay, in other words, the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to use this information that we can get from an, an equation that's in the form y equals mx plus b. Okay, so first of all, let's see what we have here. Okay, so we're going to determine the values of m and b for the following. Okay, and remember we're taking it from, and I'm just going to unlock this, or ungroup it probably. There we go. So this is what we're looking at, because our slope is always in front of the x and our y-intercept is the number after. but it has to say y equals. If it doesn't say y equals, then just any old number in front of x isn't going to do. So let's look at the first one. The first one has y equals 3x plus 2. So it's in this form from over here, so we know that our slope is 3, and we have a positive 2, so that is our b value. Here, again, it's in the form y equals 1/2 x minus 5, so we have 1/2, and our y-intercept is -5. Now the next one says y equals, however, it's not in this form. So the first thing I need to do is I need to rearrange it. And I'm not moving it from one side or the next, I'm just moving on the same side. So a positive 2x, so I'm going to put a 2x, and then I'm going to have my -7. Okay, so I haven't changed any value, it's still on the same side. So now it's exactly like the form we want. So our slope is 2 and our b value is -7. Again, with the next question, it doesn't say y equals a number times x, so we need to do that. So y equals positive 1x plus 6. So the number in front of the x in this case is a positive 1, so that's my slope 1. It's not a 0. If it was 0 in front of there, you wouldn't even have an x. And our y-intercept is going to be 6. The next one says y equals -3x, but there's nothing added or subtracted. So really what's happening out here is it's adding 0. So we don't put a number or a variable or expression and then put +0 because that's kind of redundant. So what we do here is our slope is -3 and it means it crosses at the origin at 0. Then we have this one. It says y equals 5. Now my problem with this one is I don't have an x. So really, again, it's the same kind of concept. I have 0x plus 5. So my slope here is going to be 0 and my y-intercept is going to be 5. So this is a really important one, and I'm going to just put a star beside that so we can go back and look at it because there's another one that we want to look at as well. Okay, and then if we look at the next one, again, it is not in the correct form, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. And when we do that, we end up with y equals -x plus 2. So the number in front of x in this case is a -1, and my y-intercept's 2. Now I have another one here. It says x equals 5. In fact, I don't even see a y at all. So what does this mean? Well, it means a few different things. It's something similar to the one that I starred here. So one of these lines is horizontal and one of them is vertical. It means for this one that there is no y-intercept. Okay, so there is no y-intercept. And my slope here is undefined. So when you don't see a y at all, it means your slope is undefined. And so what you have here, if we just quickly draw two little graphs, we have this, and we'll go back up to this starred one. What the first one here is saying is y is 5. So y is always 5. It doesn't matter. It's always going to go through 5. Okay, and so I'm just going to change the color so you understand that that's the line that I was talking about. So it is a horizontal line. When x equals 5, it means x is always going to be 5. Doesn't matter what y is, x is always 5. And so again, I'm going to change the color of that one so you can see. So the reason I have stars there is this is something that often students get confused on, especially on a test. And you can bet that on a test that a lot of the horizontal and vertical lines are going to be located throughout the test. Could be in a chart form like this or later on also when we talk about horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, so we've done a table and we're able to read the equation that way. Now what we need to do is we need to be actually able to graph. So the first thing we're going to do is this is the equation that we're going to be working with.